Southwest Iowa, we could have the best crop we've ever had, but it's about protecting our yield potential. And when you talk about fungicide, I would highly suggest doing a preventative and a curative product when we spray. But you know, if you look here, and we'll go into the fields, you know, our northern leaf blight is something that we started seeing about 10 days ago. That 4th of July rain, I think a lot of the spores, northern leaf blight is actually, it comes in with spores, and the spores probably came in when we had that shower. I'm guessing those storms right there in the 4th of July time frame. So what we started seeing, and this below the ear, and the leaves have a cigar type lesion on it, and that's our northern leaf blight. And you can see there's a lesion there, lesion there, the lesion there. Here's another one where you look at that one, we have multiple lesions and we're taking a lot of green space. Now, when we look at lesions below the ear, we're not taking away from our yield, because just the leaves above the ear is actually what we feed it. But you look at, here's one already, we're starting to see 2 lesions above it. What we'll see this early on in the growing season, usually we see this type of stuff in August. You know, August 10th, State Fair time, August 15th, August 20th. And then you have a hard time of deciding, do we protect that yield, or are we going to really gain the yield? Well, today we're July 24th, and we're seeing it not only down here, but moving up, and moving up rapidly. And that's what we talk about, really protecting yield potential. Northern leaf blight really likes the cool, damp, humid weather. You know, perfect for what we saw right there in that middle 6th through the 10th. So why don't we go on in? And the thing about when you scout fields for this, Tom, it's not like corn rootworm beetles like we saw last year have a big effect on yield, where you got to go in and really see what's going on. Spores for northern leaf blight are going to start from the outside and come in. So we'll go, you know, we'll get past the end rows here, and we'll just go in and actually look at the rows about, you know, 30 to 50 yards is basically all we're going to need to go in the field. So like I said, we don't really need to go too far in. We talked earlier, you know, yield potential's here. You know, here we got a nice ear and a second ear. Is it going to be a full ear? Probably not. But, you know, if we can protect it, if Mother Nature helps us with moisture, we could have phenomenal crop. So here again, just like we saw earlier, lesions on the below the ear. We're not worried about those as much, but once you go up, even 1 above, 2 above, we're talking 2 to 3 lesions per plant. That's taking up way too much green leaf, especially this early. There again, look at the area here, all the way up there. You know, multiple lesions, a lot of green space that's taken off. Those are our leaves. If you look, I mean, look at this leaf here. You know, if we don't spray fungicide, this stalk is going to have a really hard time of filling the ear. Other thing that I've started to see with the last little bit of heat that we saw is we're starting to see a little bit of anthracnose just starting to show up. So that's the black spots that you see. And anthracnose is basically something where it's weakening the stalk. You're going to see it on the stalk. It's not on the leaves. It's more on the stalk. One other thing with the heat that we saw earlier this week is, instead of northern leaf, some gray leaf spot. And just like northern, it is in between the vines. So northern's going to have cigar shape. Gray leaf is going to be more just like this. See how it's only about the width of the vine itself, and that's what we're going to start seeing. And gray leaf likes hot and dry, like what we saw earlier this week. So we're starting to see a little bit of that show up too. We can take photos of a leaf like this. So when I send it to the actual customer, we take a photo, you know, look at, you know, leaf like that. I mean, look at all the dead area. That's northern. And look at, I mean, we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lesions that have all gone together. Same thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lesions. There's 1, 2, 3 that make all that and all the way to the tip. He said, you know, can you take a look? I said, you bet. And then we can actually because like we talked about, something like this, Tom, we want to make sure that not only are we curing what we have out here in the field, but also with the right chemistries, right fungicides, we can also actually prevent more disease taking place in the next 14 to 21 days, depending on how much rainfall we get.
So John, I mean, this looks tremendous. I mean, is the yield potential still, I mean, it didn't hurt the yield, you don't think?
I mean, I think the grower did exactly what we need to do to preserve the yield. Did we lose some? Absolutely. But, you know, it still has enough green area, especially above the leaves or above the ears, to make sure that we can get as much photosynthesis to produce as much grain fill as possible. Fully pollinated. One thing I strongly suggest, I know the chemistries are a little bit different depending on what product you go with. I highly suggest waiting until we see a little bit of brown silk. You know, this is a perfect example. Just starting to see brown silk right here, we're good to go.
And why is that?
Just because we don't want to alter when we're actually pollinating. About 4 years ago in Illinois, and that's why there's been changes in chemistry. They sprayed too early and actually saw a reduction of 30 to 50 bushel per acre because they sprayed too early and did not. They actually hurt the corn because they altered the pollen process, and the ears just did not get fully pollinated.